Yes, you can feel the Christmas spirit in the air. It's almost palpable, and that song just really brought it in. It goes about the story in the book of Luke around the Christmas event. It goes like this. But there were some shepherds in the region lodging there, and they kept the nightly watch over their flocks. And behold, the angel of God came to them, and the glory of the Lord Jehovah shone upon them, and they were greatly afraid. And the angel said to them, do not be afraid, for behold, I proclaim to you great joy, which will be to the entire universe. For today, the Savior has been born to you, who is the Lord Jehovah, the Messiah, in the city of David. And this is a sign for you. You will find the baby wrapped in swaddling bands and lying in a manger. And suddenly, the great armies of heaven appeared with the angel while shouting praises to God. And they were saying, glory to God in heaven, and upon earth, peace. Good news to the children of men. Peace on earth. Goodwill to humankind. That was 2,000 years ago. So does it feel like we've had peace since then? I think if we looked at what's gone on around the whole planet, that probably at some point during every year since then, we've had war going on the planet somewhere. So the question is, it could be, do we have to have no war in order to have peace? Is that the definition of peace? That there's no war going on? I think there probably is more to it than that, right? Or else we could have no peace, because there seems to always be war going on. And I know I've had times when I was not at war with anyone, but I did not feel at peace. Well, in New Thought, we know that the presence of God is everywhere present. It's all things. It's first cause, creator, and it has created everything out of its own being. And we also know that God is peace, right? I mean, who would argue with that? So then that would lead us, A equals B, B equals C, that would lead us to say that then everything is peace. And your mind is probably screaming at me right now, oh, Jean, you have got that wrong, because what I'm looking at is not peace. Yeah, sometimes it doesn't look that way. So what is peace? What is it? Well, let's start with some things it's not. A lot of times in New Thought, we do what's called a spiritual bypass. We'll look at something that really needs some kind of attention, and we'll say, oh, it's all good, and then go about our business. Well, just slapping and it's all good on top of it is a spiritual bypass. It doesn't mean that we've resolved that inner tension, that we're inside, we know something should happen over here, but at the same time we know God's good. There's a tension about that that's got to be resolved, and the spiritual bypass doesn't do that. So that's not what peace is. Another thing about peace is that sometimes we think, well, peace is present because even though it looks like it's not present now, there's going to be peace. At the end of this conflict, there's going to be peace. But see, once again, that's always putting peace off into the future. That's not saying now is the presence. Now is peace. So what is peace? In my mind, peace is that deep and abiding, enduring, undying knowing that all is well. that all is well, that it's all within the present and all is well. Ernest Holmes, founder of religious science, says this: what is it that must be felt in spiritual practice, the feeling which is beyond words, statements, and phrases? It is the essence of life, the spirit of the thing. The practitioner assumes that the truth is all there is. Hence, all appearances of evil are but wrong interpretations of the truth. They're not the truth in reverse, and we don't need to consider them as opposites to the truth, because truth has no opposites. Truth has no opposites. So if peace is, that's a quality of God, if peace is, then it simply is. There's no opposite to it. And if we're not seeing peace, if we're not experiencing peace, then we've got a wrong interpretation of what's going on. So that means that even when I see conflict, there's peace there. Well, let's talk about conflict a little bit. Conflict is, a lot of times we think that everything should be smooth. That there should be no conflict. That conflict is something that's kind of imposed upon into our world, but it's the wrong thing. It shouldn't be here. And see, we're looking at that from a lower perspective, because conflict here on earth is intentional. It's intentional in this dimension. There are other dimensions where there's no conflict, but in this dimension, it's intentional. We're meant to have it. And if we can understand what conflict is, that it's really about energy. It's about the high frequency energy meeting the low density frequency energy. When those meet, you have friction. And friction is conflict. So if we can look at it in terms of energy, we see that really conflict is just a movement of energy. It's just a movement of that. And if we were to say there should be no movement, if we say, oh, peace is the total absence of any kind of conflict, if we're going to say that, then basically what we're saying is that nothing can ever move. That if it moves and friction occurs, that there's no peace. But we don't want to say that. See, the high frequency energy that meets the lower frequency energy, it does that to transform the lower energies. That's why Jesus the Christ being came to earth. He carried a very high level energy, very high vibration. It's always happening, this conflict. It happens in nature, it happens within us. Something doesn't quite feel right, so it makes us grow. It's like the little seed that's planted under the ground. When it starts to, find its way up to the earth, it disturbs the earth. There's a little bit of conflict there. It disturbs the earth so it can poke its head on through and grow. That's conflict. That's friction. And it's intentional. So the question is, can we see the conflict and know peace at the same time? It's sort of like a paradox. Can we live in that paradox? Well, I have some tools that I brought with me today. Things that we can use to help us get there. And the acronym of the day is FOB. Now, I used to have a key to start my car, but now I just have this little fob, okay? And my car won't go without the fob. So FOB is very important here. And we're using FOB as our acronym of the day. The F stands for faith. Now, faith is Faith is kind of one of those things. It's been thrown around a lot about, oh, do you have faith? And for me, it kind of had a bad context. So I want to talk a little bit about it. A lot of times, um, does faith just mean that we know that there's a God there? Um, my late husband Lance was talking with his brother Joe one time, and said, "Joe, do you believe in God?" And Joe said, "Yeah, I believe in God." But Joe doesn't have any spiritual practices. He doesn't go to synagogue. He doesn't do any of those things. And so it's Lance kind of looked at him and said, "Well, Joe, you kind of said I believe in God, like you'd say I believe in Chevrolet. Yeah, it's there, but what's the relevance, right?" But the faith we're talking about is not just saying, "Oh, it's there." It's having this inner sense of knowing, can I have enough faith that peace is here to hold that? Well, you might ask, well, what am I having faith in exactly? Can we believe that the essence of God is peace? And we know that there is only one presence anywhere present, that everything is made out of this one substance of God. There's nothing but God here. And so, can we know that that presence and peace is peace, and therefore peace exists in all things? Can we have faith in that? That even though I might not be seeing it, that there is a way to see it where it's there, where this faith is calling us to believe in the allness of God. Now, like Eric Butterworth talks about, the allness, that everything, all is of this one presence. Can I see it in all things? Ernest Holmes goes on to say, the words that a practitioner uses should imply a feeling which lifts him above the appearance he wishes to change. The practitioner must feel something which cannot be merely stated in words. He must feel the allness of his treatment, not as a mental suggestion, but as a spiritual realization. Faith, feeling the allness of the presence. This takes a shift in consciousness. It takes a shift for us. And that's been known for decades. That we need to shift our consciousness in order to experience that. Even in the Bhagavad Gita, ancient writing, it says a faithful man who is absorbed in transcendental knowledge and who subdues his senses quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace. One who's not in transcendental consciousness can have neither a controlled mind nor steady intelligence, without which there is no possibility of peace. See, the faithful man has this transcendental knowledge, who's absorbed in this transcendental knowledge. We have faith that the essence of the presence is here and that it is peace. That's the F. Now, the O in FOB stands for only one. Only one. Myrtle Fillmore, co-founder of Unity and How to Let God Help You, she says, we're sending forth peace to every land. Nations will forget to fight if we continue to know that all people express the one life. No one will deny that God is omnipresent or that God is all. Yet we talk about a great many presences, a great many powers, and other things that do not belong to God. When we find that there is only one presence, the real presence of infinite goodness, we find no place for the opposite quality Once again, that's like Ernest Holmes said, there is no opposite to truth. There's nothing out there. There's only one presence. There aren't other presences. There aren't other powers. There's only one. And if we're seeing everything out there as one, we must include ourselves in the as one, that we are one with everything else. Ken Wilber says this: the individual is fundamentally one with the entire universe, with all worlds, high and low, sacred and profane. The sense of identity expands far beyond the narrow confines of the mind and body and embraces the entire cosmos. The individual, our consciousness, our who we are, our identity is far beyond this, what we see as mind and body. It's far beyond that. It embraces the entire cosmos. Can we see ourselves as that? Because that's what this only one includes. The person on earth who exemplified that most clearly, Jesus, the Christ being, he had an instance when he was in the boat with his disciples, um, and a great wind comes up, and it's so big that the waves are breaking over the bow of the boat and starting to flood it, and so uh, the disciples are terrified, and Jesus is asleep in the cabin, and so they go in there and they say, Jesus, don't you care that we're about to be drowned? We're going to be destroyed out here. And so Jesus gets up and he rebukes the wind, is what it says. He rebukes the wind. He says, peace, be still. And the wind stopped and the seas were calm. And then he looks at his disciples and he said, didn't you have any faith? Why are you afraid? And they're still trembling, and they look at each other and says, who is this that even the wind and the waves respond to him? He knew his oneness with the entire cosmos. He knew that there was only one thing, and that his intention had power in that knowing. A lot of times or maybe I just made it up, but this reminds me a lot of the tempest in our mind, the wind and the waves and everything going on, and the fear that it generates in our minds, and it's ours to do, to say, peace, be still, peace, be still, and know the only one present, that one life, that one love, that one goodness, that one peace. There's only one. So that's our O for the day. And then we get to the final letter B in FOB, final letter B. And the B stands for body. Eckhart Tolle in The Power of Now says, when challenges come, as they always do, make it a habit to go within at once and focus as much as you can on the inner energy field of your body. This need not take long, but you need to do it the moment the challenge presents itself, because any delay will allow a conditioned mental, emotional reaction to arise and take you over. When you focus within and feel the inner body, you immediately become still and present. as you're withdrawing consciousness from the mind, if a response is required in that situation, it will come from this deeper level because there is infinitely more intelligence in being than in your mind. The invitation is to go within to the inner energy field of the body where we sense the presence, not where we just think about the presence, where we sense the presence. This is that feeling that Holmes was talking about. That's how we get there. Feel it, the inner sense. Because that's where there's infinitely more intelligence than in our mind. So I have just a little exercise for us to do to go from the mind to the body. It's a little breathing exercise. If we simply slow the breath down, and this morning we're just going to count, like a slow count of 4 on the inhale and then slow count of 4 on the exhale. And see if that doesn't bring our mind onto the body and into the inner awareness of the body. So let's just sit together and begin our inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, and exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. See, that immediately puts us on that inner energy, that inner sense, and we can begin to feel ourselves as one with that cosmic universe. So you might say, well, Jean, that's great. It's good that you have helped, given us some ways that we can actually focus and deal with our own peace. But what about this peace on earth, goodwill to all? What about that? We want to know that the peace that we engender in our own energy field, within our own being, helps multiples of others, that we, just by raising our own field, by knowing peace within ourselves, bring peace to many others. It's the song that Reverend Kit's going to sing at the end of the service. Let peace begin with me. See, that's not just a trite saying. It's a direction on how we begin to bring peace, more peace, the experience of peace on the earth. It's a sense of recognition of what is. So, Fob, we have faith that all is well. We know that with O, there's only one, and we stand with that, no opposites, only one. And B, we know that the body is the place where we have that awareness of the presence and peace itself. So let's just move into prayer treatment. I take a deep, slow breath into the belly. I'm so grateful this morning. I'm grateful just to be in this exact spot. Regardless of what's going on, I'm grateful because I know that this presence is all that there is. That there is only one life, and that is my life. It is the life of all, and it is my life. There is only one thing ever happening, And it is the presence making itself known in another way, and in another way, and in another way. And in this awareness, I know that I have the power to speak my word. I am one in all of that, and I speak that everyone here today or listening later, everyone is quickened with the understanding of that deep peace that is already within them, that is simply waiting to be experienced, waiting to be expressed. That we see this expanding out from each of us into the people immediately around us, and even further into our own city, and even further into our country, and even further around the globe. We feel this peace. It is real. It is real. And it is present, even at the same time we see conflict. This essence of life that we are, it is what awakens us to this deep understanding. We have faith in it. We trust it. We follow it. And we come home to that place within ourselves that knows that God is and all is well.